weird. What's wrong with my size? For those who are watching, we'll get started in a minute. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. My camera, I can't see everything I need to see. I want to make sure that when Chris comes in, I'll be able to get him into the stream. Um, how's everyone doing so far? If you've seen the title of this episode, we are going to be talking about what was it? Oh, Federal Reserve. Its history, banking, and all of those things, all to do with that. Still getting myself a little bit ready. So as you all come into the chat, as you all come in, say hello in the chat if you'd like. Let me know that you are there. What's been going on for your weekend so far? I'm gonna do one more check with Chris to make sure that he is that he got my message that we are starting. Okay. All right. Oops, sorry. There we go. And uh, I'll check in. I'll check in a minute and see what Chris gets in there. Thank you for those who are here with me so far. This is the Political Matrix. I'm your host, Young Morpheus, and in this episode, what we're going to be talking about is the Federal Reserve. It's some of the history of it getting set up, and let's see some of the early banking I guess systems that predated the Federal Reserve and which led to what we now have, which controls our whole economic system around the world. Hold on a second. Let me get a little bit of water. I'm a little dry tongued at the moment. Yeah, so let's see. And I'll give it a couple more minutes before Chris hops in here. I don't know why my camera's doing something weird. I can't see any of the chat. There we go. I can see chat now, but now I can't see. I don't know. It's just doing something weird with the it's doing something really weird with my normal layout. And normally I'm able to see who I have in the chat room. I'm normally able to see my chat, and I'm normally able to see my co-hosts as they come in. So just throwing me a little bit off that I can't see when Chris comes in, and I don't want to miss him and have him sitting out there in the cold. Um, let's see. It's what 8? Yeah, I'll give him another minute before I get started. If I can, I want to start with him. Yeah, I feel like this topic is an important topic to talk about because if you understand how a lot of these things get started, it helps you understand how this whole system we were talking about with the whole Illuminati can even, manifest. And a lot of people, when you say Illuminati, it throws them all off because they think about, the Illuminati of the 1700s, which you can look up as the actual organization, and you had, actual people that you can track and stories and things like that. A lot of their interfering into politics is what sent them further underground. And if you go from the earliest memories of secret societies just in general, there's always been some kind of thing that they've been pushing for, or in kind of in a political lane that's normally gotten them in some kind of trouble, and they've had to, go deeper underground. And till this day, it's no different. The only thing is, we're so far away from their early days that being pushed deeper and deeper and deeper underground has taught them how to hide themselves much, much better. But it's not that long ago when their origins really started. And if you trace back to the origins, things will start to become a little bit more clearly, how this whole like Illuminati, or you can even, some people call it a cabal, because that's, some of the names for it also. The reason why I just stick with Illuminati is because they consider themselves the enlightened ones. And so if that's what they call themselves, and that's what they say they're striving for, enlightenment, I don't see any reason to change the term and call it anything different. Now you do have, um, the people who fall up under Illuminati, i.e., Bilderbergs and some of these other secret societies, whether it's Masonic organizations or Shriners or whatever. But all of them all fall up under, this certain hierarchy. And a big portion of the hierarchy is the money. And that money is all generated through the Federal Reserve banking. Um, yeah, I guess I'll get started. Let me check one more time. See if he's come in yet. Let's see. Oh, shoot, got Kelly in the house. Says listening. But we'll be cooking. Cool. That's fine. I'm not going to throw any graphics or anything on the screen, so it's not going to be anything that you're going to need to look at. And I'll try to keep it as simple as I can. Um, so don't worry. Hopefully, it's something tasty. Um, what we're going to be talking about tonight is the Federal Reserve and how they all got their formations. If you go back to early Europe, this is where a lot of the early banking started. Most of that would be in the Eastern Europe area, which would be like Germany, Russia, Poland, Bulgaria, places like that. There's always been, forms of banks, yes. But when they started to become a system where it started to cross borders and started to become debt and controllers of finances in a much larger way, is when they came up with the system of holding a certain amount of capital and connecting that to another branch in another state or location. So in the days of battle, if, for instance, your cavalry, which is fighting somewhere else, needed money quickly, and it was hard to transport all of the actual gold to those other locations, what you would do is you would take out the loan from that bank. It would basically be paid out. And so by the time your money got there, then you could pay the bank. Um, and the people who kind of really honed in on this system was an early family in the, I guess we'll say, Eastern Europe area, which started off within the gold markets first. Um, the patriarch of the family, a man that went by the name of Bauer, he was really big into the gold thing, and grew a big name. As he grew that big name through the gold industry, he switched his name to the shield which he used to keep outside of his business, which was a red pentagram. That man changed his name to Rothschild. Um, and so the Rothschild, I believe it was Amschel, the senior Rothschild, which he changed his name to Red Rothschild, which means red shield, which comes from the red hexagram, which they used to keep outside of their business, going back to, I want to say I think it was what, 1700s, if I'm not mistaken. Um, at that time, he passed on his business to his sons. And some of you might be a little bit more familiar with his sons. And I'll go into the sons at another time if we want to go in particular. But each of the five sons that he had all controlled one of those banking type organizations where they lended money back and forth on larger scales instead of dealing with the average person to dealing with monarchs and dealing with different dynasties or different tribes or different rulers, whoever had different political issues going on. And they found that it was a lot more lucrative to get involved with a lot of the dukes and bishops and things like that. And through those relationships, which they were able to form, the five sons were all dispersed off after they kind of gotten their general boot camp in the school of how the banking system was going to work. They all branched off to their five locations. You had one which was in which would be London. You had another one which would that would have been in Germany. I think it was Frankfurt to be exact. Another one in Vienna. The other one was in you had one that was in Italy, and you had one that was in because the one that was in Italy, that tie gets really, really interesting when you start looking into him because he had a big tie with the Catholic Church, which that gets into a whole nother can of worms there, which it will get us sidetracked, so we're not going to go there tonight. But yeah, I can't remember the other one. I believe it was like the Netherlands or some kind of area like that. And if you look at what each of those nations were dealing with and contending with at the time, it will explain a lot of where certain wealth of certain nations came from in the first place. With these five sons set out in these locations, controlling lending and growing a lot of what's the word? A lot of I guess familiarity and a lot more connections with very powerful people in the world. They were also able to learn all the secrets and learn all the secrets of what might go on with different markets and economies as the stock markets and things started to open in various countries, because you had a stock market that started in the UK far before the United States was a nation. And with that stock market, they learned some of the tricks and the trades. And since they were able to forecast who they were going to lend money to and who they weren't going to lend money to, and kind of have an inkling earlier than most on the outcome of certain wars and certain battles, they were able to capitalize with that knowledge financially. One of those examples would be, I believe it was Nathan Rothschild, the one who was in England at the time, where he knew of I'm trying to remember his name. Was it Wimbledon? I can't remember. I'm drawing so blank at these names. I just had it on my tongue not too long ago. But hold on a second. There we go.
All right. Marcus, what's up, man?
Yes, we got my man in the house, Chris. How are we doing, brother?
I'm all right. Just getting in not too long ago. Long drive today, but we're here. We made it.
Yeah, so glad to have you here. For those that don't know, Chris had a tournament with his son, so he had a lot of riding around back and forth.
Yeah, we did.
And, all praise is a good thing when you see, father out there, good relationship with his son. A lot of fathers don't, they're like, son, I'm busy or I'm tired. I'll catch you another game. So I always think that's a wonderful thing to see, father out there supporting his son. So, thank you, brother.
Yeah. And, on that note, real quick, I'll just, my two sons, one plays basketball, the other one, he wasn't boxing before the corona hit. We get a bad rap as men, as fathers, but in both of those spaces, whether it's a boxing gym or it was a basketball gym, there's a lot of us in there. There's a lot of men, a lot of fathers dedicated guys. Now, who knows what the relationship is with the mom? That doesn't matter. But, you know, there's a lot of men out there that are that are good dads and participants in their lives. Hey, Emmanuel, what's up, man? Oh, you got a cut. Okay.
Oh,
I knew y'all were gonna say
man, looking
something.
clean right there.
I know, right?
I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, you look fresh.
Yeah. Thank
How
you,
we doing
guys.
there? How we doing, Manuel?
You know, stuff's a little tough right now, but you know, I'm getting through okay. I heard from my cousin. I heard from my cousin and her mother in from California, so you know, I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I'm doing okay. How are you guys doing?
I mean that's good. I mean, I've been doing all right. I don't know if you caught like the last couple of shows or whatever, but me and Chris have been kind of digging deep into a couple of topics. So you know, I'm glad to have you back in the mix. I see we got a couple of comments already. I saw Kelly's in the house as usual. One of the I guess we'll say family of the show. Signs as always. Love signs in the building. Let's see. Says listening, cleaning some electronics. Hope you're okay. I'm doing great. The guys, they sound like they're doing well. And it says, and you never come and you never come to my games. Homer told you I'm finding that boring. So a little humor there. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the topic manual. We're talking Federal Reserve and the
You
early
said early days into the Federal
foundations.
Reserve.
We're talking Federal Reserve's early foundations of banking. Um, where I started in so far was talking about to the point of the Rothschilds and the five sons when they were set into their different locations. And you had, you know, one son who's in Germany, one in London, one in the Netherlands, another one who was in Italy, and then the other one I believe it was France. Um, and they were in all of these locations. And when their father first kind of converted from the gold business and some of the diamond business and stuff, he converted to the money with the debt and lending, and he kind of worked it out to, you know, if anybody would have kind of like came to him in the first beginning and be like, hey, I want all my money back, then it kind of his whole thing would have kind of fell apart. But kind of how his system of making money was so ingenious is he would get like say 15 people all together, and you guys all hold your money there. And whenever one of you needs money, he just loans other people your money and then charges interest back on it to make the money. And so that's kind of what they did all the way across the board until they amassed their wealth. And so they were doing that with kind of smaller shops and businesses, kind of when you had the old markets for a better word. And so, you know, they would, hey, give a little bit of bushels of this for some coins of that. And they were working trades out from those early days like that, back in like the 1700s and stuff. Well,
Okay.
even I mean, I want to say it was back to 1600s with the father, but 1700s. That's when they really start deciding to switch from dealing with the average person to starting to deal with actual governments and monarchs and things like that. And when they start doing that on that higher level, the influence which they were able to get and information they were able to get helped with a lot of the money they were able to make through more the, I guess, insider trading in a sense. Technically it wasn't a law, but they were able to make a lot more money by knowing how to forecast things. Because for instance, if they're funding this army and they're getting all the reports that they're doing really bad, then they know, okay, they're about to lose. So they're able to double down however they wanted to monetarily. in which they actually did that. I believe it was Nathan actually did that during, I believe it might have been not World War One. I don't want to say it was World War One. It was, but it was one of the wars over there in Great Britain, um, Wimbledon. And if anybody's in the chat, they can Wimbledon or Wellington, I believe. I believe it was Wellington. Um, he spread out reports that they were about to lose, and he knew that they weren't about to lose. And he went to the stock market and basically said, "I'm selling. The war is lost." Well, what happened is he knew that that wasn't the case. Everybody did the same thing. They all sold, sold, sold. And when everything got to the lowest possible, he came in and bought it all up. And that's how he kind of took over the monetary, sense and economy of all of Great Britain and all of the UK. I mean, what are your thoughts so far on all that? I know it's kind of a mouthful.
Okay. First of all, do you know who? Well, I guess maybe I'm wrong, but do you know who Jacob Schiff is?
I don't.
David Schiff?
Jacob.
I think it was Jacob Schiff, and he was one of the. I think he might have been one of the 5 people you were talking about that came in and
Oh yeah,
and
Schiff was
created
one of
the and who
yes, he's
who
one of
helped
the
start the
people
Federal
who.
Reserve in America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so okay. No, I just want to make sure because I was reading up on it and I wasn't. I knew about the um I knew about the whole Alexander Hamilton angle of it and how basically like everyone who helped found the Federal Reserve was supposedly a Mason.
Mm-hmm.
And it started prior to the first president, not George Washington, the president before that. Supposedly all of them were all technically Masons, and then technically, they helped found the Federal Reserve, and then right. So that's where I am so far. So I follow the 5 families route, but I had my question was it so that part about him coming from a prominent family, supposedly this Schiff person was from Germany. He came here from Germany, created the he basically created the Federal Reserve, right? And supposedly created a whole bunch of other organizations and companies and stuff like that that were supposedly off of that as part of this grand conspiracy to maintain control.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I am aware of what you're talking about. Finally,
see what it is we've learned to kind of see some of these people and not pay very much attention. But these are normally like the front men who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And that's kind of the closest we actually see to it. What do you think, Chris?
I had never heard of the Schiff person, but I started to look into the reserve a little bit more. I see their model was based off 1609 Netherlands, was it?
Mm-hmm.
That's where that's where they first put it into play. I think later on, late in the 1600s, is when England formed their Bank of England, which then helped propel them into the juggernaut that they became, in that 15th, 16th, 17th century.
Mm-hmm.
To help build up their navy, basically, to help them go conquer the rest of the world.
Well, that's exactly what happened. I mean, when they did that move right there, with that little flip, and took over like tons and tons of the debt of UK, that's when they had them. And then once they took over that debt, what they did from there was they start pushing their own policy, which they wanted, personal, individual policy, which they wanted. And so if they decided, okay, well, we want to get another Federal Reserve Bank here, we want more control here, we want to get there, that's what they would start pushing. And then what you start to see, if you follow kind of like politics of different country and war politics, you'll start to notice almost a pattern of like war drums almost being beaten against any country who it starts being against a Federal Reserve system being brought into their nation. And that's what you started to see drumming up all the way back to World War One, with the Ottoman Empire.
Going back
Uh,
to what you said about war, I mean, even if we fast forward to current events today, Venezuela, Iran, North Korea, those three places at the very least I know aren't participants in some kind of um, central banking system. And you can see our attitude and the world's attitude towards those countries for various reasons, but I would assume a lot of it has to do with them not being part of that network, and also for the resources that maybe one or two of those places may have. But yeah, you can see clearly how all of this war, the Federal Reserve, the Wall Street, how it all ties together every single time.
What Emmanuel was saying about Schiff is Schiff was kind of the guy who he was their kind of like real like pit bull who was pushing a lot more of it. And then you had the other people who were involved who were trying to push it, like he was the person on the congressional side. I believe, like I think he was an elected official, even so he was kind of like really trying to push it from that angle. But then you had the people who were outside, like I know the Max Warburg.
Mhm.
You had
J.P.
what is his
Morgan.
name?
Yeah,
You
JP
know
Morgan.
all the other the different names, the James Pierpont Morgans, and all of those people who were involved at the time, all the banking tycoons of that day. I mean, Carnegie was pushing it, and what you see these handful of like very influential figures, powerful men in America, but what you don't realize is there was a banking power that was already above these men who were guiding them to do these certain things. And so when they got the first Federal Reserve, well, not the first, I think they called it the first federal bank. It wasn't a Federal Reserve, but it was just for a certain time period. Um, I think it was Andrew. It was Andrew Jackson who, when they came up for that third time, he was like, "No," and that's when they were like, Andrew Jackson killed the banks. And I mean, it's kind of weird for me in this day and age to give Andrew Jackson credit for anything because he's such a horrible, he was a horrible human being.
Right, I
But
read into that and I was like, why did he push for that so badly? Why did that matter to him? So why did
I
that matter
mean,
to him so much?
yeah,
Because
he was a super racist.
Well,
Right.
also, sorry to cut you guys off. I was going to say about Jackson that, like, piggybacking off what you said, he was super racist. He went after the natives, but I believe that he was looking into the readings of the founding fathers, and even they advised against forming a big central bank in the way
Mhm.
of England. So that was his reasoning for opposing this, because they had tried it all along. They had, in the early 1900s, what was that, 1906, 1907? I can't remember exactly,
Mhm.
but they had been pushing this thing for a while, up until 1913, obviously. So this is a long-held plan that the elite of the day had been pushing for quite some time.
Oh, this goes back deeper than that. I mean, this goes back even to the War of 1812. Had to
Mhm.
do with this whole banking, thing, been trying to push federal banks and stuff in here. I mean, a lot of those things, which that led into, civil war and stuff, because those banks were funding, a lot of those very slave ships that were going on, and a lot of the cotton mill and the export and import and all those things that were going on. And so that federal bank out of the UK, which was controlled by those same very Rothschilds, was pushing like all of those horrible things that were going on at the time. And I mean, if you look at it, I hate to, rip the band-aid off and say it this way, but you can find numerous accounts of very, very prominently wealthy white Jewish men who were funding the slave ships, who were plantation owners. I can even show you documentation which shows a lot of the Southern generals and people of power were Ashkenazi Jewish.
Yeah, their names are on the documents on the shipping of the names of the ships. You know, like Cohen comes to mind. I mean, obviously that's a pretty common name.
Benjamin,
but,
Judah Benjamin.
Mm-hmm. They were all on the ship's manifest. All of them.
He was going to be on the Confederate $2 bill. Actually, I mean, they actually have like a picture of him on the Confederate $2 bill. He was a huge plantation owner. And so that's something that it doesn't get talked about very much. I actually found this information out from, I was reading into this rabbi, and he was writing this story about the, I think it was the Path of No Return. And it was showing like an actual slave port, which they had, which literally said, you know, point of home, door of no return or something like that above it, where it was where they housed the slaves before they actually put them onto the ships. So, I mean, it was kind of mind-boggling, and that's kind of what led me more down that path, seeing, you know, when I have somebody who said, hey, my ancestors, I have to be honest, we did this, you know.
And the other part that goes unmentioned a lot too, besides that aspect of it, is they had to engineer many crises for the bank to come into play. They engineered it. It just wasn't a natural thing where, you know, people were just bad with money. They were just basically burning money or not doing what they were supposed to do. They had to create the conditions to approach the government to say, hey, look, we can help you guys out, right? I see you guys have this funding problem. You have all of these banks in all of these different states. They're constantly opening, closing, you know, having bank runs. You know, why don't you just let us handle this? All the while, they were the ones creating the chaos.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when you control the lending rates, and you can raise things up and down, and then you can cause chaos in a certain area with finances, and then all of a sudden, all this lending starts to come and, you know, stack up on a country. Yeah, it's very easy to you know, put them in a bind. And what I learned is, a lot of times people like to think that they're all sitting around this panel of table and they're all in agreement with everything. No, they're not always in agreement, you know, these people at the top. And in two very interesting cases, I saw where it's funny, you notice when I started talking about that before what happened. But I noticed that two very high profile people or families died in very high profile incidents. For instance, on the Lusitania, which got us into World War I believe it was one of the Vanderbilts, who was one of the most prominent families at that time, and one of those, you know, bloodlines. And then you had on the Titanic, goodness, I'm forgetting his name, but I believe it was one of the Astors who actually died. Yeah, it was one of the Astors, because one of the survivors who was on it, he what was it? I guess the mother of that member who passed away from the Astor family was consoling him and talking to him and everything. And he said very clearly, it sounded like some kind of munitions or explosion, not an actual iceberg that it hit.
Still muted.
Sorry, guys. No, I heard that theory before about the. I never heard about it being like blown up. I did hear that there were people who were opposed to the Federal Reserve on that. But aren't you speaking of the Titanic, not the Lusitania?
Yeah, I'm speaking of both separately.
Right, two separate instances. The first one was the Titanic with Astor, and then the second
one
was was with the Lusitania. Right. Going back to Jackson, I didn't realize I hate to give him credit for that, but I think he zeroed out the national debt in his presidency, didn't he? Because he did that, and then, like you said, they started like a couple of wars, and then they ended up, I think it was 100. It was like 100 million, 100 million around that time, something like. They ended up being like $100 million in debt, something like, right. 100 million, 1800s time, something like that. So,
and there was somewhere else they did that too, where they eliminated all of their debt and built up a huge military. It's Germany under a certain leader, but I'm not getting into that aspect of it. All I'm just sticking with is the fact that he eliminated all of the debt. There was no more debt. That's how they were able to grow at that rate that they did.
Gotcha.
Let's see, I unmuted myself. All right. I was gonna say, and did you know that they actually tried to kill him? So that's a little trivia for you, for those people out there that don't know that. People can say whoever they want to say did it or tried, but it is a fact that an assassin tried to kill Andrew Jackson. He tried with the first
and
pistol,
supposedly he was connected to him, but
it jammed. Tried with the second pistol, it jammed. Then he tried to reach for a knife, and at that time, Jackson grabbed his cane and started beating the mess out of him.
Just started beating the crap out of him. Yeah. Supposedly he was connected to him. God, I forgot his name that quick. I know who you're talking about too.
How's that for divine intervention, right?
Well, you know that the president that was the most harshest against the banks. I'm trying to remember. I don't think he made it 6 months. I mean, they took care of him pretty quick. I mean,
you talking about Harrison or Taylor?
I'm talking about Harrison.
Yep, Harrison. Yep.
Yeah,
It's gotta be one of those two.
I think it was like 2 months that he was president, and he was like, "I am getting rid of these banks. This is done with this stuff." Oh, that's right. It reminded me. You were saying about the Lusitania. This is one thing which they just found recently, as they brought up the remains of the ship, that it was completely stocked with ammunition. I mean, it was stocked from front to back. That's true. And I knew when I just read about it in history, knowing about explosives, I knew that thing had to have been it had to have hit explosives for it to sink that fast. Because for those that don't know, when I was in the military, my job was a torpedo man, and so knowing how torpedoes react and doing exercises with torpedoes, we know how long it takes for a ship to normally sink. And when you when you hit a large ship with a torpedo, what actually happens to the ship is the torpedo actually doesn't even hit the ship. It creates a pocket. It creates a gaseous pocket because it vaporizes everything there, and it literally lifts the ship up and drops it on it like a rock, and that's how it cracks into the hull of a ship. And so it creates that hole. So it takes time for that water to start flooding in there. Now, if you have explosives down there where it hits, the explosion is going to create a much larger hole. And that's what happened in that case. It hit explosion. Once it cracked open, it cracked the other side of those other explosives. I want to say it sunk the ship in about 18 minutes. When average ship, even the smaller ones, normally take 45 minutes to an hour to sink. Sorry, I'm trying to cut myself off because I'm editing a lot. I'm muffling a lot.
So I was going to say, we're carrying signs comments that said Harrison must have died because there wasn't an Epstein to set up and blackmail him. That was a good one. Yeah,
Ah.
that's probably true.
That's probably true.
Well, there was basically an Epstein for what was it for Wilson. You know what? You know about Woodrow Wilson, right?
He's the one who signed it he signed it into law, right? What was that?
But why?
Say that one more time, Marcus.
He said, but why?
But why?
Now that I'm not too sure. I know he was under pressure. I know that.
But what pressure?
Now you got me there, Professor.
See, that's where the rubber meets the road. Most people don't know how they got him, how they leveraged him. See, he had a side woman, and he had a little thing going on with this mistress, and she had a kid off to the side, and so they kept that on the hush, and she was keeping it silent. Well, her brother ran up a huge debt. And I think at the time it was like 400,000, which you create. I mean, you convert that into like modern day money. I mean, that's millions and millions and millions.
It's millions.
Of dollars.
That's death.
Yeah. And so I can't remember his name exactly. I mean, I haven't. I don't know. I guess I'll tweet it out. You know what his name was on you know, my Young Morpheus account, but. The guy who he paid that off, and he said we want this, and we want this person on the Senate. And they were like, all right, I'll sign that or whatever. You keep it quiet, and that's why he did it. And he comes out later on to like say he really regretted it and says he betrayed his country and all that.
Now that part I do know about him saying that he betrayed the country. That I do know.
And I know this might get me in trouble saying this, but that is how we got the first actual Jewish person on Supreme Court.
Ooh.
And you got to tell the audience the name.
I gotta. I mean,
I know you gotta tell them now.
I don't want to say the name. I don't want to say the name. I mean, just look. I will say, look at Supreme Court picks who were put up by Woodrow Wilson, and you will know who I'm talking about.
She's going from 1913 on.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to look around that time period.
Yeah, so just look around that time period. You will be able to see exactly who this person is. A certain Senator Aldridge, his name might pop up. You know, in some of that stuff as the senator who proposed him. Because you know the president's not going to just outright say it. Somebody has to like bring this name up for it to jump into conversation. And that was the senator who advocated for that person openly and got it going in the minds of Congress. And you know that history is history.
Correct.
Another thing I was gonna say about let's see, how long have we went so far? Oh, I guess we got plenty more time. I don't want to run the audience too long. My mom's always criticizing me about bragging on. So I'm like, hey, but you know the audience, they're having fun. They're enjoying the conversation. Let me check over here to a couple of what we got in the comments. Oh, I see Kelly sent us virtual hugs. We sent virtual hugs back. So it wasn't because it was on Epstein to set up and blackmail Harrison. Yeah. That is so true. I mean, he was commenting what you said before about the Epstein.
Now I know they had that meeting at Jekyll High, Jekyll Island. What I did find interesting was that St. Louis ended up with 2 Federal Reserve branches. And that was because the senator, I guess he must have been playing a little bit of hardball with them. So in order to get him to cast one of the deciding votes, they said, look, we won't give you 1, we'll give you 2. Because it's weird, right? Because it's like New York, California, San Francisco, those cities you expect. But you're looking at St. Louis? Like, what's in Missouri? especially during that time, right? Like, who's going there? What? But obviously, they needed his vote, and that's how the bank and the two branches ended up there.
I always thought it was interesting too because you know, growing up there, I grew up in Kansas City. So and we used to drive past the Federal Reserve sometimes. So it was pretty interesting, you know, and then when we go over to St. Louis every now and then, because it's not that far of a drive. I mean, you know, without speeding, you can get there in about 4 hours. So you know, you would see that one also, and I was thinking, wow, are they just like a bunch of them all over the place? And then when I found out it's like less than 20 Federal Reserves. And I was like, why is there two of them that close to each other? You know, it started some questions, you know, in the back of my head also.
We are carrying signs now, says in the comment section. I will laugh one day when a lot more people send in their DNA and we find out there are generations of unknown cousins married to each other. He found out his great-grandfather had a second family. That's probably true.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised. I mean, I was watching one of those DNA things, and I felt so bad for this girl. She found out that her mom had been lying about her father all those years by doing the DNA thing because they kept saying, "Well, you know, I think I'm Puerto Rican and like Irish," and then they're like, "No, you're not Puerto Rican. You're Irish, but you're something else." You know what I'm saying? And so like the father keeps swearing up and down, like, "I'm Italian." And then she was like, "No, your father's Puerto Rican." And he's like, "No, I'm Italian." And did the DNA. Sure enough, he's Italian, but she has Puerto Rican blood. So, you know, yeah. And so the daughter, she ended up meeting her real father and everything. But yeah, a lot of people are going to find out some awkward things, especially if they start doing DNA actually correctly. Because a lot of people have been finding that their tests have been coming back incorrect multiple times, and they're not talking about it nearly as much.
But incorrect is where? Is country of origin? Okay.
They have been finding that some people where it's saying that okay, you have 5% from this part of Africa and another 4% from this part of say Saudi Arabia, but the rest of you is like, let's say Italian. They're starting to find that well, maybe most of you is Italian, but you were actually not Arabian or whatever. Maybe what happened is your family spent time in some of those regions. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that's what you are. It just means what your family spent time living in some of those places. So it's some of it's being caught and explained right. Some of it's being explained wrong. Some of it is just being completely wrong.
It almost seems more like I always posited a theory that it was less about like getting your ancestry accurately right and more just like rounding up people's DNA for like some massive DNA registry. I mean, so many people are like, oh, I want to know this part about my nationality, I want to know that part about my nationality, but if we're really all interconnected like that I think that would just pose more questions, and I would shoot through more questions than answers, and eventually they're going to get enough. Like if they actually did like, I guess, a real DNA map or a real genealogy test, people would have more questions than answers in regards to their history and what's going on with the world and why people are married to whom and related to whom. I mean,
see, I figure,
I think it just provides.
You know, this platform is perfect for bringing up kind of crazy theories in general. So I'm going to kind of put mine out there from kind of like a biblical perspective. All of us basically come from like two races, really. And we just are all mixed with a certain amount of each. And you can't necessarily tell by looking on the outside who's who or what's what. Because of all the mixtures that we have, and certain recessive genes might be more dominant than other people. For instance, I was just looking at Michael Strahan, who has two twin daughters. His daughters are like they almost get passed for white, straight white, not even mixed. And so if you could be looking at this person thinking, oh, well, they're white or this person is black, you give them, it gets dicey as you go through century after century after century of mixing. And so it gets harder to know what's what. That's the reason why I don't get too like in some faiths they like to assume that these in particular people, because of skin tone, exactly fit the description of X or Y. And I don't like to go that direction. And so that's why I think you got to be careful when you start, with some of this DNA stuff, because something that I read is that they're only going off of like a certain amount of hemoglobins that they went and got originally, and so they're doing all their research based off of like a certain group of people from a certain region and not like all of the regions properly, and so it could be that their whole initial assessment is coming from fruit of a poisonous tree in a matter of speaking.
Hmm. No, I get it. That makes sense.
I get that.
Kelly asked us if we would ever send in our DNA. I have family members who have. Personally, I haven't yet. Um, oh no, I'm a little skeptical. I don't know what they're gonna do with that information. Maybe I'm crazy, but
Yeah, me too. I'm just no. I agree with Chris. I can't. I mean, back in the day, I wanted to know.
yeah.
But, I got like family drama right now, and I'm just like, I'm infinitely more comfortable just not knowing. I mean, I feel that maybe someone in my family might do it, and if they do, that's great, but it's not gonna happen for me because there's just
Well, I haven't done it, but I know my grandmother has done it on my mom's side, and found some interesting things. For one, I have on my mom's side, we have like I guess a small percentage of Native American on my mom's side, Greek. What else was there? I believe it was Nigerian, Congo, and couple other places throughout kind of like getting towards, I guess, Middle Eastern kind of area. So, that's where it says like the tracks of my family, I guess, going through that Africa area, some of it going through Greece or something like that, and then somehow ending up here, I guess, through some, I don't know. Gets crazy. But if you go back through like biblical things, I do know that the Greeks did take slaves from Africa, and it's possible they could have taken slaves, could have gotten away, been re-enslaved again, and then brought back across the Atlantic. So, I mean, who knows? It gets tricky.
Oh, I know it's a little off topic, but I was curious, Marcus. What's the situation out there with all the fires?
It's kind of been calmed down for the most part in my neck of the woods. I know that Northern California, it's still they're still having some issues up there, especially closer as you get to Oregon. But down here, like closer, because I'm in like LA area, and so the one thing I have noticed is it seems like almost everybody's gotten back to normal. Almost like COVID is not even really. I mean, you still see people wearing masks and everything, but like traffic is like back to normal. It's still hectic and crazy. I guess schools are still shut down, but a lot more of the businesses are starting to open back up.
Yeah, we moved to phase 3 yesterday, I believe, down here in Florida. But it's still, you still need the mask. The businesses haven't completely opened up yet, but I mean, I can hear the music from the bar outside my house now. Like they're still partying. It's 12:30. This time last week, 12 o'clock, they'd have been out of there. So it seems like on some level they're on some level they're picking back up. But we'll see going forward how long this lasts.
The mortality rate has supposedly gone down, but I think in my state they just pretty much said if somebody dies from COVID in your business, well, nothing's gonna happen to you. So all the businesses, most of them just kind of relax, like literally all of their standards. I mean, before I saw them put up that sign outside of their buildings and stuff like that, they wouldn't let you in without a mask. And now it's like that, and the workers would wear masks too. But once that sign got posted, once that was made law, the masks were gone.
Oh, okay, so
They
they're
weren't even
not
really-
wearing them there, huh?
Right, they're not worried about it anymore. I mean, they weren't worried about it no more. So
You know, that really is the
Like
sign,
super-
though. That's the sign that creates the fear and keeps reminding you. Because if we didn't have to wear them or you didn't see anybody with it, you wouldn't think anything of it. I mean, at least I wouldn't. I mean, maybe the weather has something to do with that it's always like 80, 90 degrees here. It's bright sunshine, water, all that other stuff. So you don't think, like, when you're looking at that, you don't think about a flu or being sick. You're like, damn, it's hot.
Hmm. I mean, it's the same thing here, I think. And then I think you also have a bunch of people who, I just think California people are more impatient in general. So they're ready to get back to things. They want this thing over like yesterday. So, um, whether it, I say, even if it was the fatality rate was higher, I still think people here would just still be more reckless because they're just getting impatient, with it. And I think more of these people are getting a little bit, I guess, cabin fever and things like that.
there's no
So,
relief. I mean,
yeah, and then you also factor in the people who actually have, like normally they were able to go to the doctor, and they push back that visit because they don't want to go to the hospital where all those COVID people there
Yep.
and just getting sick, and then the lines are also longer, with some of the places dealing with all the COVID stuff. So I think that when you have all these little things like that, it starts tap dancing on people's nerves a little bit, and they start getting a little bit more antsy, and it just spills over into other things. And I think we're gonna see more of that, like what we've been seeing in these protests and stuff. You know, you're seeing
right. I just,
police officers getting shot and other people getting shot. And I only think that it's going to get worse. I mean, in my opinion, but I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but that's just what I believe.
No, you're not alone in that. I agree. I mean, look, being wrong here would be the best possible thing to happen, right? That's the
Yep.
one time where it's like, oh, if I'm wrong, I'm gonna be happy. I'll shout it from the mountaintop.
I'll be super happy if I'm wrong. Like
Yeah.
Right.
I was talking to Kelly earlier on Twitter, and we were talking about it feels almost like end times prophecy, and even people who are non-believers in religion have kind of been saying that it almost gets that odd apocalyptic feeling in the air. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll talk about it a little bit. Um, and I was wondering, for the people that we have audience out there, and for my co-hosts also, what would you all think about, I guess launching in debate on just different theories that different faiths have on the afterlife or prophecies towards end days or whatever. How would everybody feel about talking about some of those things? Because like I understand some people, they're not religious, they don't want to go down that alley, but I don't know, with all the people saying that they have this kind of feeling, so like it'd be interesting to know what different religions, are saying. Of course, I have my own beliefs, but for other beliefs out there, I'm fine with doing the research or bringing some people on to I guess speak their beliefs. So I mean, I guess I'll ask Chris first, because I know that you have some faith there, and then I'll let Emmanuel answer, because he's kind of on the other side.
No, that would be good. I mean, look, like I said before, as long as we covering these things from like a historical aspect, and we're just, trying to understand, I think that's okay. Like I said, when it comes to start like preaching and stuff like that, then that's when everyone just starts to leave the building.
I would like to hear at least a couple of. Well, I would like to hear at least a couple of theories because supposedly, we're in a recession now. We're leading into a depression, and supposedly it's supposed to get worse. I'd like to hear at least. I'd like to hear at least one because I like you two were saying. I would love to be wrong, but supposedly they're saying like the depression that's coming is supposedly worse than like.
Because can we all agree that it feels like we're marching towards fascism?
I would say it feels more like a technocracy than it does the textbook definition of fascism. Maybe they will use the technology to do that, but it feels like it's some kind of combination thereof.
Well, I think we're getting the early. You got to kind of set up the system first before you start doing the physical aspects. I think we're seeing the early stages of kind of the mental side of it, the structural side, because they still got to play nice until election's over. Once the election's over, whoever wins, man, it's all bets off at that point. I mean, if Trump wins and he decides he wants to kick the shit out of the protesters and throw martial law out there, start rounding people up, what could anybody do at that point? Not very much. Mm-hmm. And vice versa, if say Biden gets in there and he decides, you know what, I'm just tired of these protesters out in the streets. I mean, a lot of people are thinking that, oh well, Biden's not, he's going to listen to the protesters. For a period, for a time period, he might.
Right. But he'll be nice or whatever.
Y'all need to shut up and get off the streets.
We give him 2 days.
Right. Maybe a month. Maybe the first 100 days he'll be nice and friendly and then march out with them and do a couple of photo ops or whatever. But then after that 100 days is over, the cameras will shut off. The press won't know nothing. And the police will just go around just tearing into these people, and we won't hear anything about it until like.
And my thing when that happens,
years later,
do you think that those people are going to back down, or you think they're going to amp up?
It depends on who we're talking about, right? If we're talking,
I'm talking about the protesters.
Well, the protesters, like the elephant in the room, the Black Lives Matter protesters. I don't know how legit that is, right? So I don't know how long they'll be out there. If Trump wins, we can probably assume they will be out there for some time to give the impression to us and the world that there's this massive uprising against this guy and everyone and their mom hates him. But obviously there's a lot of people that will vote for him, right? He is going to get another 60 some odd million Americans to come out and vote for him. On the other side, if Biden wins, like like Proud Boys and whatever you want to call that whole clique over there, on some level they'll be in the street, at least at their state governors locations. I doubt they would go from like Indiana, Kentucky, etc. to DC. Not during the winter time, anyway.
Well, that's the reason why I honestly got. This is gonna sound kind of weird, but Trump, he's not some kind of a savior or help or anything like that. But I don't believe that those people, as far as the top who are running things, would trust somebody like Trump enough to want to execute the major things that they want to do as far as their initiative.
That's a fact.
And so it would make more sense that they would want to get rid of Trump and get somebody who's already a company man to carry out what they want to do. And we all know that Joe Biden, 50 years in, he's not even going to question anything, especially at this point. I don't even think Joe Biden really is there. I mean, I think that he's taking Adderall, and, well, I don't know if it's exactly Adderall. I don't know what he's taking, but I believe that Trump and Biden are both taking something almost every time they get on camera just to be able to make it through that speech. So who knows what the hell that they're signing or what they even think that they're signing.
Okay. My theory. Well, my theory is, first of all, I don't buy any of that. If Trump loses, he's gonna stay in the White House type of deal. I think if Trump loses, he's probably gonna he's gonna totally tank. He's gonna make sure he just creates a whole wake of crap as he leaves, and then Biden will have to lean into austerity, and then of course another massive bailout will be activated, and the rich people will jump up with the happy sign of joy. They're dialing back on it, but my other belief is that Kamala is pretty much president and all, but pretty much running the show and all, but name only. We're not talking about it, but every single time Biden goose up on camera, you're pretty much getting sold on the fact that Harris is in charge. Nobody wanted Harris. Harris didn't get a single delegate, but somehow Harris is in charge.
Don't you gotta listen to women?
Right, and then what?
Don't you know you gotta listen to women?
Watch.
And then if
All that said, Kamala's going to
Trump
end up being our president too a year after the election.
right, and then we all know Kamala's history and on cracking down on rule breakers, law breakers, stuff like that. So, and then if Trump wins, my honest belief is that, the Democrats will do for the next 4 years what they did for the last 4. They'll just blame everybody else for their faults, blame everybody else for whatever's wrong, learn nothing, believe nothing, change nothing, hold themselves accountable for nothing. Say, Trump's bad, Trump's evil, we need to stop him, but still, appoint his judges, give him money for the military, blah, blah, blah. It's just the same circular BS you see all day. I'm just,
Sorry, I couldn't see comments if my camera angles a little
Marcus,
bit.
I'll read the comments in a second. I just wanted to say this too, because I saw your comment earlier, and I've been wanting to say this for a while, but I know people are very sensitive about the man. But I don't know. I said it before. I don't know what happened to Sanders. I mean, he's telling people who liked him and supported him to go out and protest and riot if Trump refuses to leave. And I'm like, this whole thing that this whole thing we've been on has nothing to do with Trump personally, right? It's always been about policy that work. And you want us to make this some WWE thing, and I can't participate in that. And it was bad enough to watch him out there for Hillary. Now you're out there for Biden, who at least Hillary could pretend she was okay. Biden, you can't, he's failing at even pretending that he's okay.
And he puts in all that.
They did to this man. I don't know what they did to Bernie Sanders. I mean, to me, I know that okay, let's go super tinfoil hat. But to me, it almost feels like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. They literally just put a different dude there. I mean, I don't know if they did the Get Out thing to him and then told him this is what you're gonna think and say, and on the inside he's actually crying and somebody else is talking. I don't know what is going on. But I've never seen Bernie be this domesticated. I mean, it's almost like he has a choker around his neck right now. I mean,
it was almost as if he was offered something, and it was like he was offered something. What was?
No, it don't seem like he offered something. It seemed like he was threatened with something.
Right, offered, threatened, something. Something was dangled in his face, basically I need you to comply.
It's like they found out that Bernie has a second family that he's been hiding, in the backwoods of Vermont somewhere. And they're like, we're going to expose your second family that's actually through your niece. And it's going to destroy you. I don't know what they found on this man.
You
I
know,
don't know
Ziggy,
if Jane is like killing chickens in the backyard and they found the evidence. But they found something on this man.
look, Ziggy just came into the chat, right? And he said it's all theater, one big Jesuit dog and pony show, right? Which I think we all agree with in that
Yep.
it's a show. But at the same time, they're not even writing Bernie's character right. He's supposed to
Mhm.
have some kind of
Yeah, his character is like written
who's
wrong.
the writers? Who's the
Yeah, this is like they
They're
wrote.
just not
This is
getting it
like
right.
Rocky got written in, and instead they got the guy from Curb Your Enthusiasm. You know, it's like what is going on here?
Yeah, because his comments are just like, huh? Like you're not even part of this partisan back and forth stuff. You have largely tried for your most of your career to focus on a specific set of policies and gain support from
And he
that.
just caved on like all of them.
Yes.
It's like I don't know if y'all seen. I don't know if y'all saw Baby Boy,
Oh yeah.
but it's kind of like that's what I feel like happened right now. To like, you know, Bernie is Jody right now. You know, watching Ving Rhames being Joe Biden in the kitchen, punking him after he just took his lunch and you know what I mean.
Looking over his fort, hugging his mom, all that.
That's what it. I mean, to me, when he was out there for Hillary, he at least held some kind of dignity. You could see a little bit of like reserve in there. It's like, yeah, we want her to win, but oh, if I could punch her in the back of the head, and you could at least see that. And it's like, if somebody cheated you, you're running around with a smile on your face. That just it doesn't jog with me. I've been like I'm former military, and yes, I've had to bite my tongue on stuff and go the opposite direction. But you never do it like with a smile on your face, willingly and happily. Right now, Bernie is like 150% in, and I mean, in fact, he's gone past being in. He's like gotten belligerent, you know, advocating for us to hit the streets and all that if Biden loses? What? I mean, you can't even get me to vote for Biden. You want me to hit the streets?
Correct. And you gonna put up bail money?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Here's another thing too. If he knew he was going to be getting out of the race, he was still collecting all that money up. You know, for and I know some people will talk trash on Nico, but Nico House, he told me at that point it was like right when Tulsi got out, it was like a week later. He was like Bernie's about to get out too. So you know everybody's making all this fuss about Tulsi, but Bernie about to do the same exact thing and worse. And I was like, all right, I can see him dropping now, but I don't know about worse. What like 3 months later, what do we see? He literally is way worse than what anything that Tulsi was doing.
yeah, I don't know that it's the same person anymore. I don't know. It seemed like they just pressed the button and he just like
Flip the switch, press the button, and just something changed, something
No,
different, man.
hey, MK Ultra could be real. I might have to do it. I might have to do one on MK Ultra. I don't know how I believe. I don't know. Well, here's the thing. I know MK Ultra is real. Yes, I know that it was an actual governmental program. I know that people actually got paid out for the lawsuits they had against the government. So I do know it's real. As far as the government perfecting it and actually working it out in the way that they wanted to work, as far as the documentaries and stuff I've seen on it, they weren't able to actually get it work. They just scrambled a bunch of people's brains. Now, I don't know. Maybe down the road now, maybe they have figured it out how to make it work. I've definitely seen some crazy videos of celebrities. It's just like, for instance, yeah, and you know what? I am gonna do the video, but one with Katy Perry. She's on stage and she's like singing. She's like and just like plops right out. And then she gets up and she starts trying to like talk, and then you see multiple ones like that. One where like Shaq literally just like turns and goes.
and that happened to him twice. I saw
Yeah.
that. And I
I
was
was
just like,
like, this is weird. I mean, and he sat paused like that for like 15 minutes.
he didn't blink.
He didn't blink anything, and they just kept on like reporting as if it's not going on. I'm like, yeah,
I mean, he looked like
somebody tap
Emmanuel.
him, see if
Emmanuel,
he's okay.
Shaq is very
Hmm?
what's the word, animated. He has a big personality. He's funny.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, but
Absolutely.
he was on the set of TNT next to Ernie Johnson and just frozen. Not a blink, not a not a head nod, not a twitch. Just like someone hit pause on him only.
Hmm.
And then I saw the same thing with Jalen Rose too. And
Yep.
I was like,
Hmm.
what the hell's going on? Like it's just the weirdest thing ever. Weird.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what it is, but it's weird. I mean, and the creepiest one, I don't know if anybody's seen this one. Lady Gaga, she's like trying to get into a van, and she's like, I'm like, what is wrong with it? I mean, and I would think like, if I was doing that to try to mess with people, like I wouldn't be able to hold character that long. I would, but I don't know. They're professionals. Who knows? But I would have like start laughing at some point. But like she maintains this like moving, like she's in slow motion, trying to get into the van, and she's getting there so weird and so creepy. And then in this reel also, there's one where like Hillary, where she's standing with Bill, and all of a sudden she just goes like, let me take my glasses off. But she's sitting there and she just goes. I'm like, what? Whoa, whoa, whoa! What was that?
I know what you're talking about. They made like a whole, they made like a whole meme out of that. Like,
Yeah, but there's more than
head
one
jerks
though.
like
There's a
head
couple
jerks
of them
like
where she
that.
does that. There's
Yeah.
a couple, and like the reporter, she's like, "Whoa, are you okay?" I mean, and a couple. I think it's trying to remember who was with her. Not Maxine Waters, but it was somebody from the CDC who was with her, and she's just looking at her like, "Okay, pretend it's normal." And it's like we will see it on the news, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, the secretary, she got a little dehydrated and just got," and then they go on past it.
Yeah,
But if you
dehydration.
actually slow it down and you look at the people around, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, it's some stuff that we need to look at. And I've my whole life been like, nah, I don't believe a lot of that conspiracy stuff. But at this point now, some of the stuff I've learned to be facts, I can't rule any of this stuff out anymore because the level these people will go to, if they have the technology, is like unimaginable, I believe. So if it's possible, you got to believe that they've done it at some point with somebody. Now, we could be wrong about all these people we're saying or thinking or, our tinfoil theories, but I have no doubt in my mind it's been used on somebody. If they have it, it's being used.
Why not? I mean, they don't make things just as shelve them, right? They don't make these military weapons just to say, "Oh, this is a deterrent." No, they actually make them to be put into use one day.
Well, people are still surprised to hear about like the heat ray, the military, the heat ray, the military raid. I was like, how is it that people were surprised? I think it came out like this month that Trump thought about using the heat ray on protesters. I'm like, that heat ray's been around for a little while. I'm like, how is it that you didn't notice the heat ray thing until just now?
I know that's crazy. Hey, Marcus, I'll read some of the
Right, I was like-
comments for you. Since,
Okay, sure.
there's a bunch of them here. We're carrying signs said, "Who will Harris pick for her VP next year or December?" And by Harris, I mean Citibank.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it says it all there. I mean, we already know who it's going to be. It's going to be Citibank. It's going to be Chase. It's going to be every single person with a money interest is who's ruling our government. I mean, at this point, the reason why I say that we basically are fascists because the definition of fascism is when industry basically controls the government. And I mean, when we have our lawmakers who are literally putting the legislation out with Alex, stamp of approval, literally still on it because they forgot to change, the letterhead.
Mhm.
I mean, it says it right there. Because I tell people, somebody's like, oh, well, what about the election and the vice president? Most of the stuff they're handling is going to be foreign policy. You see how foreign policies went for the last 20 years. So you already know what it's going to be. It's going to be the same as it's been.
Mhm.
Only difference is what happens on the in Congress. Now, if you have different people in Congress, some things might change. If you get back Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham and all these people, you're gonna have all the same results. Get Nancy Pelosi back, you're getting all the same results. Chuck Schumer, all these people, as long as they're there, you can keep changing all these people at the top. It's not gonna matter because you're getting a president or vice president in for 4 years or whatever with limited control of any votes. They control actually all the vote if the bill gets in, if it even comes up for a vote. So the president can be behind it, he can write it himself, and they can decide that doesn't matter.
All right, I'll read the next one.
Mhm.
Ziggy says store rice and beans. Remember, Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 are running full steam ahead. And
Oh, yeah.
to that, I would say that is a fact because you're seeing more. I don't know, like I'm seeing more stories pop up in my news feed about like Beyond Meat and all of these lab processed foods, and you match that against the slaughtering of livestock and food that we have seen earlier this year. It's not that crazy to think that they want to control every aspect of our lives. And
Mhm.
another thing is, I'll send it to you guys in the chat too. I saw this list of like the wealthiest Americans, right? And it went from like 2013 to 12 through 2020. And on the 2012 list, you had the Koch brothers and you had several members of the Walton family on that list, right? Now, fast forward as they move into, 2018, 2019, 2020, with the exception of Warren Buffett and maybe one member of the Walton family, it's all tech guys, all tech guys. Oracle, Gates, Musk, Bezos, who else? And there's like one or two other, oh, Balmer, but they're all tech guys. That's why I call it. That's why I say it's like a technocracy coming. They're going to tech the
Right.
hell out of us.
Yeah, I mean, great. I mean, what
I
do
mean,
you
I've
think,
never seen
man?
technological fascism before, but I think we're about to.
I mean,
I think
Megan,
we
what do you think about the
all right?
Agenda 21, Agenda 30?
Say that one more time.
I was wondering what does
I said
Emmanuel think?
no. I said we're about to see the. I was saying we're about to see the first steps of technological fascism if we're not seeing it right now. I mean, I've never personally seen it before, and I think you asked earlier, are we going toward fascism? I think we're always marching in that direction, but I think it's just moving a lot faster than we thought it was going to be. So I do realize that whoever controls, I think someone realized a while ago, whoever controls the tech controls us. You got Elon trying to get it in our heads, and you got people donating, like bunches of cash into social media. I mean, there was even talk about Twitter going paid because it wasn't being able to be powered by advertisers, because advertisers were pulling out and advertisers didn't want anything to do with it anymore. I mean, we're like, we are seeing this slow march toward like what Chris said, controlling literally every single aspect of our lives. And I think I read it in a book that like by 2025, supposedly like it wouldn't be abnormal for like someone to be live stream like all the time, like literally when you're going to bed, when you're going to sleep, when you're going to the bathroom, stuff like that. I mean, like it's like 5 years from now. So that's what I see. Right. It's
Let's
man.
see who else says. Oh, okay. I saw one of them said, I saw techno fascism alive and well in the Iowa caucus. It's here now. See? There's another one. Kelly has a funny comment. She says she loved the video of Hillary being tossed into the van like a side of beef. I remember that.
That's in there too. It's gonna be in the video.
Yeah. That was funny. I saw that one.
That was hilarious. I remember that.
We're carrying signs asking all of us, do any of you have a collection of histories of Jews that saw shit coming, had the ability to flee from Europe before World War II? Mostly interested in non-Middle Eastern destinations. Well, I would say,
Could you read that one again? I didn't hear you.
oh, sure.
Right.
asked us-
Read that again.
Sure. Do any of us have a collection of the histories of Jews that saw shit coming and had the ability to flee from Europe before World War II? Mostly interested in non-Middle Eastern destinations. So basically, I would assume that he's asking the Jewish people who had some kind of clue of what was coming and they left. Where do we think they went, or where did they go? I know Argentina is a big one outside of the United States.
Argentina was a big. Well, United States was the premier place where a majority went. But outside of there, you did have a big chunk who went to South America, and you had Argentina. You had, I believe it started originally in Brazil, but they moved to another place. I believe it might be in Chile. And you have those two places, and then I believe, well, you said outside the Middle East. The other one was like, what was it? UAE and Dubai in some of the early days, before some of the different things start happening before they start leaving out of those areas. But you still have remnants of some of those people who are in Jordan and some of those places who decided to cross into. I know they were talking about non-Middle East, but probably easily a good 25% went into those areas right there. But yeah, America probably a good 50%, and then the rest were those places spread throughout South America.
And then what else? What else do we have? Kelly says people could stop giving all that effing info away and make the technocrats work for it. I know. It's so true.
It's not going to matter anymore. I think right now we've already went to we're past, like, Pandora's box has already been opened. For instance, if you start researching any information, then you'll start to notice all of a sudden you get the commercials for it. For instance, I can be looking up stuff on YouTube, and then I switch on to just my Google, and I'm getting all that information. And then I switch on to my Netflix, and then Netflix it'll suggest me shows that are like the stuff that I've been just recently looking up. And so that tells you right there that it's obviously connected. It's obviously monitored. I've even saw one of those tech guys show. He turned his phone off completely. He put it inside into one of those one of those, I guess,
Anti-static
bags to be able to hide the RFID signal. He went around town for like 6-7 hours. As soon as he turned it back on, it retrieved all his information, all his locations he had been throughout that whole time period. And so, even with your phone off, it's still recording. So, I mean, unless you're going to keep your phone away from you or leave it at home completely, that's the only way that you kind of have a sense where you're not completely being tracked. But also, if, for instance, if you're a particular target that they want to track, they can still track you through other people's phones around you, can track you through other CC cameras and monitors other ways. So if you're out in a public place, they can use whichever circuit cameras around to be able to track you and follow you in that way also. So I mean, it's going to get to a point like I don't know anybody who's ever been to London. But when I was in London, what I noticed is London is the most surveilled city in the world. There's literally cameras everywhere. So if you do anything, it is caught on camera. It's just a matter of if they feel like doing something or not. So most of the time, like, you can do something and all of a sudden you just get a ticket. You could have been out, graffitiing a wall, and then 2 weeks later, you get a ticket for graffiti because, yeah, they knew you did it. I mean, and you don't even know that they saw you. You have no clue where the camera is, and that's what's coming around the world.
Yeah, pretty much. But
Yeah,
like
pretty
you
much.
said, Google's always listening, which is correct. We've known that for a couple of years now. I think we all, like you said, Marcus, we've all had conversations or done searches, and you go somewhere else, and like you said, the ads are there for that particular topic or issue, and it's just like, damn, it's weird. But those of us who said stuff years ago, we were the crazy ones. Now everyone's like, oh yeah, it's true, it happens all the time.
Hmm. Well, my thing is, um, and that's the reason why I was talking to Kelly about end time prophecies and stuff, because like within my beliefs, um, it I can say I interpret these things to, I guess, things I'm seeing as revelations of things I believe. Now, I guess I'm trying to be careful with the way I word this because other people might say, well, that doesn't mean this, that doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean anything. Through my beliefs, it prophesizes certain things. It prophesizing basically, the great evil would try to be like God in a sense, which God can see and know everything and know what you're doing at all times. Our governments are getting to the point where they want to know literally what we're doing, what we're thinking at all times, just like a God would. Um, Also, if you go back to the days of Babylon, it talks about how they were on one language, one currency, one religion, one all that. If you look at the signs which are going on in the world, even all the religious faiths are trying to do kind of like a unity where, okay, we all have this commonality, we all believe the same thing. You're seeing it through the financial sectors as they're starting to go into more monetary things, where in my beliefs we go into a one world currency. It's predicted that way in the Bible that that's what would happen. Which, if you get to a point where you're only using whatever some kind of electronic coinage, that would be one currency. And then it talks about things like mark of the beast and things of a chip being inserted into your hand or your head to be able to purchase things. When I was in the military, first getting in, the little cards we had, which everybody has now on their debit cards, used to keep all of our military records and everything on it, which they still use those today. That chip technology has been the technology that's been getting, shrunken down, and which is believed that your medical records and your banking and all that'll be held on that one chip, which can be inserted in your hand or in your head. We have Elon Musk literally talking about brain chips being put into people's head. I mean, so people can say, "Oh no, well, I don't believe what yours says,"
Well,
but
they're doing the trials in Western Africa of the Mastercard Wellness Pass, which
mm,
is exactly what you were referring to. You can look it up, Mastercard Wellness Pass. It's all
mm,
programmed, and it's all under the Beyond Cash um, program they have, a marketing thing they have going on. Just
wow.
like it's Beyond Meat, Beyond Cash. So again, you can see how all these things are tied together.
Well, and then I'll tell you another thing. This one that I was
Hey
gonna
guys,
go into earlier. You got to get.
yeah, I gotta get going, but
Oh,
was
all
really
righty,
cool,
brother.
guys. All right, you guys have a
All
good
right,
one,
yeah,
okay?
we'll get what you get you. Are you being tomorrow morning?
I don't think so,
Okay, then
but
we'll,
try
we'll,
me.
we'll catch you next week, then, brother.
Okay, all right. You guys have a good night, okay?
All right,
All
Emmanuel.
All right.
right. Let's see. Another thing that it talks about is it talks about mystery Babylon, and so what I've kind of what most people who believe what I believe, we believe mystery Babylon is America.
Okay.
And it basically talks about the nations which will come against mystery Babylon. And it says Gog and Magog, which in biblical geography that would be Russia and Moscow, and those places. It talks about um, Babylon and Asia being destroyed. And most people would think Asia means Asia like we think of. Well, the people in like the 1500s or whatever, 1400s, they like to just change what all those places were called and come up with different names. But Asia, what that actually referred to was Turkey. So that area is Turkey. When it says Asia in the Bible, it's talking about Turkey. So, and that's what it talks about, the seven candlesticks, but that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, it talks about certain regions. So think about it. What's the region that United States is having its biggest issues with? Russia. It also talks about leaving Mystery Babylon silent and dark. And what we've been talking about Russia, possibly, Rachel Maddow last year was talking about them having the possibility to shut down the power grids.
I saw that.
But that would lend closer towards that prophecy. We've been hearing more about aliens and UFOs and things. And my understanding of the Bible, it says Christ will come back on chariots through the clouds. That could reference a UFO. It also the interpretations kind of came out to I guess the original text would be like heavenly vehicles, the chariots that they came out. So I'm like, that could be UFOs, and we've been seeing more of this UFO stuff that's been going on lately. And then have you seen like some of those little things you'll see at the bottom, and they were like, could Pharrell actually be this ancient Indian, or could he be living forever? Could he have lived forever? This actual Indian from like 1800s. Well,
no, I didn't see that.
Well, they'll have some of these things like that, and they'll have a celebrity compared to somebody like 100 years ago, 200 years ago. This is going to get a little out there for people for a moment, so I'll warn you. I'm kind of first starting to I guess read in and investigate on this, but the possibility of not reincarnation, but reanimation, meaning like us actually coming back over and over after a certain amount of cycles. And so from my understanding in that theory, not saying I necessarily believe in it yet, but it's like every 3 to 4 cycles. So every 3 to 4 generations, you would come back again. And so you might not understand anything. And some of the afflictions that you might have in that life are because of transgressions you did in that previous life. And so, and one of the stories which they kind of bring up to kind of hint towards that is when it talks about like Jesus doing miracles. Yeah, and then he's talking to this blind man, and he asked the blind man, he asked like, well, why is he blind? And they're like, well, who is the sin with? Did his parents sin, or did he sin? Well, that's the key thing you got to notice there. If he's born blind, how could it be a sin which he committed in that lifetime? It would have to be a lifetime before. If he's being born blind, and he's asking why does he have that sin. And so they basically say, well, no, he's blind because he's left blind for you to be able to come and take his blindness away for the miracle. He's not being punished. He's just put here so you can show your blessing. But anybody who's like supposed to be blind, that's, I guess, their penalty from that previous life and stuff. So that's kind of getting a little out there in the theological kind of theories, but just felt it was fun to put it out there.
No, it's cool. But Marcus, we're at like 140 now.
We can get going.
All right.
Cool. And I'm trying to get myself down here. It is giving me all kinds of hell.
Okay.
So if I could get myself down there to be able to end it out. Oh, I'm just flipping myself all around. Or actually, if you can does it give you an option to be able to switch it? Sometimes it lets my co-host be able to end.
I can, yeah, I can. There we go. I think that was. Oh, all right, all right, guys.
Yeah, well,
Emmanuel said peace. Yeah, we're having we're carrying signs now. Said, you know, have a good night to Emmanuel. But you know, that's it. I guess we'll pick up tomorrow, like around what time? 3 my time, right? 12 your time.
3 your time, 12 my time.
All right, yeah, that works. So tomorrow, and then we'll cover all that other stuff you mentioned in the message too. Like
Yeah,
we'll go further into that.
I'll put oh, and any questions about any of the stuff which I was talking about, any exact names, just hit me up on Twitter, everybody up there in the audience, and then I will try to answer those questions because it'll be much easier then because I'll have it all right there in my notes to bring it up.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. It's the Political Matrix with Cy Lawson and host Young Morpheus, Marcus Cage. Peace, guys.
Peace.